This is my first video update coming to you from Athens, Greece here on this Wednesday morning. Let's get to some news. The big story that we will talk about, of course, is the third day of the Great Kherson counteroffensive. But first, let's talk about the death of Mikhail Gorbachev at age 91. We have a lot of condolences being sent out following the death of Gorbachev. Let me read those to you from Russian President Vladimir Putin, who expressed his deepest condolences on the death of Mikhail Gorbachev to his family and friends. U.S. President Joe Biden expressed his deepest condolences over the death of Mikhail Gorbachev to his family and friends, praising his willingness to risk his entire career, for a safer world and greater freedom for millions of people. The Biden White House described Gorbachev as a man of remarkable vision. Outgoing UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson praised the courage and integrity he showed in bringing the Cold War to a peaceful conclusion, and Liz Truss, the frontrunner to become the next Prime Minister of Britain, described Gorbachev as a remarkable statesman who made a profound contribution to global security and stability, working with Western leaders to end the Cold War. French President Emmanuel Macron praised Gorbachev as someone whose choices opened up a path of liberty for Russians, while his commitment to peace in Europe changed our shared history. So obviously the collective West is showering Gorbachev with praise as someone who brought an end to the Soviet Union and brought in the unipolar world order, I guess you can say. And Gorbachev is a very polarizing figure, I would say, a historic figure, but someone who is very controversial. Looking back on the decisions he made, looking back now on the decisions he made, there is no doubt going to be praise as well as condemnation. I wonder if Liz Truss even knows who Gorbachev was, to be quite honest. But here's the interesting part about this story, and I think it's interesting. You have had 4 leaders who have recently died, leaders with regards to the end of the Soviet Union, who have died since the start of the February 24th Russian special military operation. On May 3rd, 2022, Shushkevich died. On May 10th, 2022, Kravchuk died. On June 19th, 2022, Burbulis died. And on July 31st, 2022, Bagatin died. And now August 30th, 2022, Gorbachev died. 3 of these leaders were actually involved in signing the Belovezhik Agreement, which was the agreement signed in Belarus that declared the end of the Soviet Union, the USSR, and ushered in the existence of the Commonwealth of Independent States, what is known by its acronym as the CIS. So I thought I would bring that up because I think it's kind of interesting. Could be coincidence, maybe it points to something else, but the fact that you've had all of these leaders and these prominent historical figures involved with the end of the USSR passing away in such a short time period, essentially 6 months, is interesting. With that said, let's move on to an update with regards to the Zelensky Great Kherson counteroffensive, which has seemed to, I don't want to say fizzled out, but definitely has seemed to just kind of stall in all directions. And this is the third day, as I mentioned, of this counteroffensive. you had some more numbers coming out from the Russian Ministry of Defense. The Ukrainian side of things has been very quiet for the most part. I mean, they've come out with numbers, but their numbers have been very, given the level of propaganda that comes out of the Ukrainian side of things, their numbers have been very, very measured, it seems. I think their latest report was something along the lines of 150 Russian casualties, which is significant. But given the scale, or the played up scale of this great counteroffensive, I don't know. It just doesn't. It seems like the Ukrainian side has been very, very quiet. What that means could be anyone's guess, but the fact that they haven't been pounding their chests at the great success of this counteroffensive, to me, is kind of telling. But the Russian Ministry of Defense, they put out numbers after the first day of 560 Ukraine casualties, along with hundreds of military assets destroyed. And they have now come out with a number as of August 29th. And let me just read you what the Russian Ministry of Defense says, what they said with regards to the end of the August 29th counteroffensive. Russian forces have taken out hundreds of Ukrainian troops and dozens of tanks and armored military vehicles after repelling an ill-fated offensive in the south of the country. As per the statement of the Russian Ministry of Defense, quote, the effective actions by the Russian forces destroyed 48 tanks, 46 infantry fighting vehicles, 37 other armored combat vehicles, 8 pickups with heavy machine guns, and more than 1,200 Ukrainian servicemen in one day. They don't mention casualties, but the ministry added that Kiev sustained these losses during a botched offensive whose directions led to Nikolaev, Kryvyi Rog, and other cities in southern Ukraine. The ministry went on to say that Moscow's forces routed the units of the 128th Ukrainian Mounted Assault Brigade, which had been redeployed from Western Ukraine to take part in the operation. 5 service members from this brigade laid down their arms and gave in, according to the ministry. Russian forces also wiped out more than 200 militants, including about 40 foreign mercenaries, as well as more than 20 armored units. So this is according to the Russian Ministry of Defense. Once again, the Ukrainian side of things has been, for the most part, quiet, fairly quiet, with regards to the success or the failure of this counteroffensive. I have to say, looking at everything, kind of stepping back and looking at everything that has taken place in the last 3 days, my general summary of things would be something along the lines of everything is at a standstill with regards to the front lines in Kherson. And for the most part, it looks like this offensive has failed or has fizzled out, because we're not really sure what the objective of this was. So it's hard to say what failure is, to be quite honest. What was the objective of this counteroffensive? But the lines in either direction don't seem to be moving. And perhaps the only success, if you can call it that, is the area of Andrevka, which I noted during the video update I gave yesterday. This kind of this street, for lack of a better word, in Sukhoi Stukov, I believe is the name. Kind of like this village street where the Ukraine military made about 3 to 6 miles of inroads there, and it looks like they're holding that area, this Andrivka area. I've heard it's a gray zone. I've heard that they're holding it. Sukhoi Stavka is the area. Sukhoi Stavka, Blagodatovka, and Andrevka, and Dozavoye. But I've heard Ukraine is holding it. I've heard it's a gray area. All right. once again, if someone wants to get into the details of how these villages and these streets and these areas are changing hands, check out Theta Mapping and check out Defense Politics Asia, and there you'll get a more detailed view as to what's going on in Kherson. But we are getting some breaking news, perhaps you can call it. It hasn't been fully confirmed, but there is some news, some rumors, rumblings that there is going to be another counteroffensive, but this time in the Kharkov area. And we are getting some reports that a large number of Polish T-72s, as well as Ukraine fighters, reservists trained by the UK, trained by the British, are going to be taking part in the Great Kharkov counteroffensive. And this should be taking place in the next day or two, maybe even by the time this video goes up. I don't know. We're getting these reports. These could be rumors. This could be real. We'll wait and see. But we have heard some statements from Arestowicz, who's the chief court jester of the Zelensky production team. He came out with a statement yesterday, and I haven't been able to quite confirm this. I just kind of saw this as I was scrolling through various news channels. But according to what I saw, Arestowicz gave a statement saying that the Great Kherson counteroffensive and all of these offensives that are going to be taking place are not meant to shock and awe, but they're meant to be kind of a slow grind, because this is a war of attrition, and so all of this military activity is meant to be kind of a slow grind, war of attrition, meant to bleed the Russian military, because the Russian military is running out of missiles and motivated fighters and ammunition and all of these talking points that we've heard for the past 6 months. So that was the statement from Arestowicz. Don't quote me on that 100%. I'll look for that statement and that tweet, and if I find it, I'll put it up on the screen. But I'm pretty sure that's what he said. And we are getting a lot of reports as well from the Ukraine side of things that this 15,000, I've heard 15,000 to 30,000, depending on where you look. But let's go with 15,000. That this 15,000 strong offensive, this 15,000 troop strong offensive by Ukraine was nothing more than a fake out, you know. Look over there while I do something over there, kind of maneuver by Ukraine in order to get this real offensive in Kharkiv rolling. I've heard that as well. I've actually seen a lot of YouTube analysts, pro-Ukraine YouTube channels, say that this offensive in Kherson was nothing more than a fake out. That's why there's no real objective or purpose to it. It's just kind of like, you know, we're going to throw 15,000 troops, 30,000 troops at Kherson, fake out the Russians, and then really mount a serious counteroffensive in the north in Kharkiv. And if that is the case, then wow, that is one costly fake out. 1,200 annihilated, Ukrainian troops killed. How many more injured? 3 to 5x injured. All of that artillery taken out. Long lines at blood banks in Nikolaev and Odessa. We're seeing photos of those lines as well. All of that for a fake out. I don't know. I find that hard to believe, but you know, could be. We definitely know that the Zelensky regime has no value for the lives of the soldiers that they throw to the Russian artillery, but it is the Russian artillery that did do a lot of work to repel this counteroffensive. The artillery, the missiles, but you know, if this was a fake out, well then, what a reckless fake out. And I wonder how that would have the Ukraine troops feeling, knowing that the Zelensky regime has no problem just, you know, throwing a bunch of troops into Russian artillery in order to create some sort of diversion. That can't be a good feeling if that is indeed the case. One sec, they're picking up trash, so it's a little noisy. Maybe I'll move to a quieter area, I guess. 1 second. So yeah, that would be the equivalent of having a football match and saying, you know what, I'm going to allow the team to score, I don't know, 3 goals so they can relax on their defense, and I'm going to come back and then hit them with 5 goals in overtime. You know, I mean, it's kind of like what in extra time. That's kind of like what this narrative reminds me of, I guess. Anyway, I just wanted to let everybody know that there's a lot of channels that are saying this was the objective of this Kherson counteroffensive. It was a fake out. I'll stick with my thinking that this Kherson counteroffensive was for political reasons. As we outlined with Alexander in our video yesterday, I'm positive that Zelensky is getting a lot of pressure from the collective West. No coincidence that this counteroffensive happened a couple of days after Boris the Clown was in Kiev for Independence Day. And I'm sure that he told Zelensky to get something going. We know that in the next couple of weeks, Zelensky's going to be needing more money, more weapons. He's going to be appearing in front of the collective West, asking for more weapons and for more money. I'm positive that EU leaders also want to show some sort of progress, because their citizens are getting very restless given the collapse of just about every collective West economy. So I'm positive that the Davos elite, they want to show the collective West citizens that, look, this money is actually, you know, resulting in battle victories. So I'm sure they want that as well. And you know, you have the referendum that's going to take place in Kherson and Zaporozhye. So, you know, the Zelensky regime would like nothing more than to delay or stall that. And of course, you have the fighting in Donbass and the what was going to be a Nikolaev advance from the Russian military. So I will say this. I will admit to this. This counteroffensive has been successful if the goal, because what I said before is we don't know if this is a failure because we don't know what the actual objectives were of NATO and the collective West and the Zelensky regime. But if the goal was to take attention away from Donetsk and the fact that the Russian military is wrapping up their operations in the Donbass, then it has worked. If the goal was to take attention away or perhaps stop the momentum or the advance of Russian forces toward Nikolaev for the moment, then this has worked. And here I'm speaking on a military level. It seems like the momentum has stopped as far as the Russian advance towards Nikolaev, as well as from a media perspective. You're not hearing about Nikolaev anymore, are you? Everyone is talking about Kherson, and maybe soon they'll be talking about Kharkov as well. So if the goal of this counteroffensive was to do those two things, take away attention from Donetsk and Donbass, take away attention from Nikolaev, then I would say for the short term, it has succeeded. Now, if what I've been reading is true, that Zelensky is moving military assets in Odessa to Nikolaev to plug up holes, then the success of stopping the Russian advance towards Nikolaev or possibly Odessa, well, in the medium to long term, it may be perhaps the biggest military blunder, one of the biggest military blunders in history, because if that is the case, that Zelensky is moving assets from Odessa to Nikolaev and to Kherson, well, then he may have made Russia's future advance towards Odessa a lot easier. But I have heard, once again, Ukraine analysts say that Zelensky is indeed moving assets from Odessa to Nikolaev and Kherson because the Ukraine military has been very smart to keep their troop counts secret and to keep their manpower, the manpower that they have, the soldiers and the military assets, a secret. And so they can afford to move those assets from Odessa to Nikolaev and to Kherson. In other words, the other fake out here is that the Zelensky regime has been kind of tucking away their real military numbers, tucking them away in the West and in Odessa, and they've been in training in Poland and the UK, and now they're bringing them all over to Ukraine. I've heard analysts say that as well. Once again, I'm not saying this is true or untrue. This is just what I've heard from the Ukraine side of things. I don't believe it. I don't buy it. I think this is a political decision. It looks to me like this is a decision made by a regime that is desperate and that's in its last weeks or months, and they're looking for more money and more weapons. And from the collective West side of things, the great Kherson counteroffensive and perhaps a Kharkiv counteroffensive for the next 2 to 4 weeks should remove much of the pressure that they have with regards to the failures in Ukraine and the failures with regards to the economic sanctions war that they placed on Russia. And as Alexander noted in the video that we did yesterday on the Duran channel, for Boris Johnson, this is a good way for him to buy a couple of more weeks so that he can exit from 10 Downing Street, pass it off to Liz Truss, and then Boris can make the claim that, look, when I left as Prime Minister for the UK, I left Ukraine in a state of winning. They were mounting the great Kherson counteroffensive when I left, and now Liz Truss came into office, and now look, everything is falling apart. So I think that sums up where we are with day 3 of the military activity in Ukraine. Let me offer an alternative. Let me offer an alternative narrative. I'm just going to throw this out there, and it's just complete speculation on my part. We know Zelensky hates Zelensky. We know Zelensky hates Zelensky. We know that Zelensky is being pressured to make political decisions to mount a counteroffensive. And we know that Zelensky has been, for the better part of a month, has been urging Zelensky not to do it. He's been telling Zelensky, don't do this. This is suicidal. This is crazy. We're going to lose a lot of men and a lot of equipment. But after Boris's trip, it looks like that Zelensky, he overruled the Ukraine commander, and he said, let's go, let's do this. What if Zelensky is saying, you know what, fine, Zelensky, you want to do this counteroffensive, go ahead, just do it. Knowing that this is going to end up in a massive failure, and that once they have this failure, Zelensky's position will be further weakened, opening up the way for perhaps the military to take some action. Just a thought. Perhaps Zelensky, he said, this is going to be a massive failure. I don't want to see my troops perish, but we've hit an impasse, and I just see no way out of this. So you know what, Zelensky, go ahead. Do as you wish. You know, I wash my hands from this debacle. And after this debacle, perhaps it opens up the way for some sort of military coup or some sort of change in power. Perhaps. I'm not saying this is going to happen. It's just a thought that came to me. So I mentioned the fact that Polish assets, Polish tanks, have been used in the Great Kherson counteroffensive and are being deployed to Kharkiv, if you believe the rumors. Well, Poland, as we know, has been very active in this NATO proxy war against Russia. We know that they have troops fighting the war. They have troops. They have mercenaries, paid military soldiers fighting the war in Ukraine on behalf of Zelensky. We know that Poland is the main staging ground for this war against Russia. And Morawiecki, the Prime Minister of Poland, he was meeting with Macron in France, and he gave an interesting interview to Le Figaro. And Morawiecki indicated that Russia would endeavor to persuade the West to end the hostilities in Ukraine and get back to business as usual, taking advantage of divisions among EU members. But Morawiecki said that, so yes, and there's a quote, so yes, a threat of implosion exists in reference to the EU. That is why it is important to maintain a dialogue between us to find compromise and a common denominator. That is what Morawiecki said. He admitted that he and Macron have a number of differences over Ukraine, saying that while they both believe that European unity should be defended, Macron would do better to talk less to Russian President Putin and more to Ukraine leader Zelensky. Quote, my view is that Zelensky deserves all the French support because he is fighting for the most important European values, for freedom, justice, sovereignty. He should be the main recipient of phone calls from the Elysee Palace. Morawiecki also said that if Poland held the rotating EU presidency, it would push for the seizing of Russian assets which are now just frozen, because this type of sanctions could really threaten Russia. Yeah, it would also lead to the financial collapse of the European Union if you seized all those assets. Though I know that is what Morawiecki wants. He wants to get his hands on all of that Russian money that is just sitting frozen. We know that's what you want, Morawiecki. We know that money is calling to you, and that must be killing him to see all that money sitting there that he could just dish out to all of his donors and his campaign contributors and his party officials, but he just can't get to that money, can you? Anyway, I do agree with Morawiecki, though, when he says that Zelensky is fighting for European values. I just don't buy into the European values as being freedom, justice, and sovereignty. I would actually say that Zelensky is fighting for totalitarianism, authoritarianism. Canceling media, censorship, banning opposition parties, things like this. Definitely, Zelensky is definitely fighting for those things. So speaking about Poland and the fact that if they were the presidents of the EU, if they had the rotating presidency, they would just go full throttle against Russia. We do have an update with regards to the travel ban which Poland is spearheading against Russian citizens. This time it is coming from Annalena Baerbock, the very incompetent, in over her head German foreign minister and Green Party member, and she has suggested a compromise. That's how she's wording it, a compromise. And what this compromise is, that Annalena is suggesting, is exactly what I've been saying the European Union will do with regards to the Russian travel ban. In other words, Baerbock is saying that the EU could suspend a visa facilitation agreement with Moscow instead of shutting out Russians completely. What does she mean by this? Well, she means canceling the multi-year, multi-length, multi-entry Schengen visa for Russian citizens, and just keeping in place the single entry, one-time, short-term visa that I have been saying the European Union will do. This is exactly what I've said the EU will end up doing, and this is now Germany saying that, yeah, this is the compromise. You see how they word it? This is the compromise. This was the plan all along. This was the plan all along. What you do is this. Here's what you do when you're the EU. This is how the EU operates. They get crazy leaders in the Baltic states, in Poland, in Finland, in Czech Republic, all these leaders who absolutely despise Russia and they want to go full throttle, World War III, let's send in troops, let's fire, all the missiles we have towards Moscow, let's just go full into it. So you get these countries that despise Russia, despise the Russians, have it in for have a real grudge against the Russian Federation. They go and they make these crazy statements. Let's have a full Russian visa ban, every Russian, no Schengen, no one time, no nothing. Let's cancel Russians from traveling anywhere in the world, not only Europe, everywhere. And they come out with all these statements. And then over time, you get the other, rhetoric from Germany, from France, every now and then a Cyprus or Portugal or Greece, comes in, Hungary comes in and they protest all of this, and everyone protests this, and they say, we can't ban all Russians from not traveling to the EU, and this is not going to be a good look, and Borrell says we shouldn't do this. And so then you start getting Germany or France coming in and saying, no, everybody, let's just compromise here, and let's just do a ban on the Schengen visa, the multi-entry visa, but we can keep the single entry, so we can, come out and say, look, we're not banning Russians from traveling to the EU. We're just stipulating that if they want to travel to the Schengen zone, they can only get a simple one-time entry visa, and we're going to abolish the visa facilitation agreement that we put in place with Russia in 2007. We're going to suspend it permanently. That's how they operate. They make crazy claims. It's that whole sales technique. Overpromise. No, it's not overpromise. What is it? What is that sales technique? I was going to say overpromise and underdeliver. No, underpromise and overdeliver. It's one of those days. Underpromise and overdeliver. It's kind of the reverse of that, right? You talk up a whole lot, but then, you come back and you walk it back. 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, but you still gained a step, right? That's how they do it. That's the update with the visa ban. Let's do 2 clown worlds, actually. The first clown world has to do with the rock band Pussy Riot. Remember them? Many, many years ago, maybe 20 years ago, maybe more. This all-female rock band, they were in Red Square, St. Basil's Cathedral in Red Square, the beautiful St. Basil's with the colored domes. And I believe it was St. Basil's, and they went into the church and they filmed a music video. I don't know how they got in there. I don't know how they did it all, but they filmed the music video, and they basically desecrated the holy church. And they did some very, very disgusting things in the church. And for that, they went to prison. Some of them went to prison. They were detained by the police. They were sentenced to, 2, 4, 5 years in prison, all of these things. And there was a huge uproar in the collective West. Oh my God, I can't believe you're doing this to this rock band. What about freedom of expression and speech and the right for musical artists to express themselves and all of these things? And Madonna came out and she was crying. Poor Madonna. She was crying, and she gave benefit concerts for this rock band. And everyone was outraged. Putin the dictator, Putin the authoritarian. I can't believe what he's doing. Anyway, fast forward to 2022, and the members of this rock band are in Switzerland, and they decided to spray paint some streets in Switzerland. The 3 women, Maria Aliokina, Lucy Stein, and Tasso Peitner, they decided to spray paint some walls, and they wanted to spray paint anti-war action in graffiti, and then show that Switzerland is not far away from Ukraine. They were going to spray paint the words, war is not far away, to virtue signal to all the people of Switzerland that, you shouldn't be abandoning Ukraine now. Get more money and more weapons to Zelensky, because, it's really not that far away from Switzerland. So that's the message that they wanted to spray paint on the walls in Switzerland. But in the Swiss town of Konis, to be more precise. But they were arrested, because you can't do that in Switzerland. They were detained in handcuffs and arrested for spraying graffiti on a wall next to a road. Where's the outrage? Where's Madonna? Where's the benefit? Where are the benefit concerts? Where is the collective West calling the authorities in Konis dictators and authoritarians and just evil people for arresting this rock band, because all they wanted to do was freedom of expression by spray painting walls in the city, roads in the city? Where's the outrage for arresting Pussy Riots? Haven't seen it. Let's do a second clown world. This one's going to be quick. This is a tweet from Poppy Fields Cafe. Notice on this tweet that I'm putting up on the screen, this image, notice the flag. Notice the flag, blue and yellow flag there. And in this image, you will notice an electricity bill with the amount of over 9,000 euros, 9,836 euros, 92 cents to be more precise. That is the total due. And the tweet says, I got this electricity bill today. How in the name of God is this possible? We're a small coffee shop in West Meath. Yeah. So notice the flag. Notice the virtue signaling support, the support for the sanctions, the support for Zelensky. And then notice the complaint there and the question, how is this possible? How is it possible that this small little cafe has an electricity bill of close to 10,000 euros? How? How did this happen? This coffee shop asks. We have a long, long way to go until a majority of the collective West population wakes up. A long, long way to go, unfortunately. That's the video, theduran.locals.com. Check us out on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, and Telegram as well. And check out Alexander's channel. Check out the Duran's channel. I am going to be signing off. Time to grab a coffee and get this video up. Take care.